He's Straw, I'm Parker, and together we are the Battle Hammer. Beep, 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 beep. Right, so today is going to be a little weird, quickie one, giggity goo. It's going to be a bit of an experiment on my part because I don't really know what I'm doing yet. Here we have some bases for Marvel Crisis Protocol. Game from Atomic Mass Games, who are, I think, a subsidiary of another company like Asmodee or someone. But it's Marvel Crisis Protocol. Superheroes. I've got some Asgardians that I'm just about to start. I've started on Hela. She's coming along quite nicely. Next on my queue I've got Loki and Valkyrie. Just there, looking all cool. I do have some more. I think I've got all the Asgardians so far and some other bits and pieces as well, which I'm sure you'll see on the channel at some point, because Straw got into it. It was something that I was always interested in. If you don't know the story already via our socials, Straw did his back in and watched Into the Spider-Verse and was like, fine, I'm into superheroes now. So he went and got that. Now I've started painting Hela, as you can see. She's coming along quite nicely. Black and green, you know, very traditional colour. She's not finished by any means, but she's getting there, you know. Some nice green on the cloak. I'm quite proud of her glowy undead kind of spirits coming out from the ground. Cool, lovely. But I wasn't sure how to do a base yet, and I didn't want to paint the base without knowing what I was going to do. And here's Valkyrie and Loki. So I was going to do a bit of experimentation. I thought, why not just film it? Now on the bases already I have done a little bit of work because I didn't want the stock bases just as they are, so I've added a little bit of texture before priming. There's some little rocks, bits of rubble and some texture paste. I did that before the prime, so I'm just going to show you what I did and then I'm going to prime them. You don't have to watch me prime them, and then I'm going to have a little play and do some experimentation. I'm going to try and make it relatively simple because I don't want to necessarily dig out oil washes and all that kind of stuff for it. First of all, I've got these Battlefield rocks from Army Painter. I can't remember, a couple of quid a tub or something like that. They're just bits of broken up cork, which I didn't realise when I bought it. I just thought, oh, they look handy, but now I realise it's just bits of broken up cork, so you could use that. So we will take a pair of tweezers that I have for tweezing. I picked these three bases specifically. One is just pavement. One is pavement with like a drain. And this one looks to be a little cellar door entrance with some brickwork. So that way I know I'm going to get a selection of different surfaces to paint. I thought, I was tempted to just do this one. I thought, well, what happens when I do something else? This one I imagine is like a pub basement door, so people will deliver their booze through that. So that makes me happy. So just going to take some super glue, whatever your super glue of choice is. I quite like this Gorilla Glue because it comes with the brush. Just makes it a bit easier to work with. So we're going to take say 3 or 4 pieces of base. I generally tend to go for odd numbers if I can, because apparently that's the thing. So we're just going to splotch a bit of glue on and then squidge. Hold it down for a second, make sure it sticks. There we go. We shall repeat this process some times. So 2 or 3, tuck one in there. Normally, as you can see with the miniatures, they're already glued to the base. You don't have to, you know, you could not glue them to the base, but I've normally glued them to the base and then primed them. Just in case even with lockdown, I probably won't get them all painted, so at least I can play with them. Giggity. And then we'll do another one. And we'll put that there. It's also a good way, because a lot of these, well, you can see that, I don't know, A lot of these models come with tactical rocks, so she's standing on a little rock here, or something like it. Daredevil, for example, has got a tactical bit of church, or a tactical gravestone, or whatever that is. Some of them come with tactical magic effects, but it's a good way of blending the rubble into the base. I know that people are complaining about the large amount of tactical rocks on these miniatures, but actually I think that they make them look a bit more interesting rather than just standing there. And because some of these bases are textured as well, when you look at that one, for example, there's a lot of texture on that. It would be hard to stick a random dude's 2 feet on there. So I think by putting those rocks on there, they just give it an extra something for it to stand on. So I'm just going to wait a few seconds for that one to dry. So that's done. And then we're going to take some of this earth texture paste. This happens to be the dark earth colour because that's what I bought. It doesn't really matter which one it is. You can use the GW ones if you've got the GW texture paints, I think like Sterling Mud or whatever they are, but these are considerably cheaper by volume, so it is worth looking out for these ones if you're going to do an army or whatever. So just take some of that. I've got a crappy old brush that I use just for this. I don't want to, obviously you don't want to use your good brushes. So I'm just going to get a little bit, just want a little bit at a time, and then splooge it onto the base there. And you can use it to blend in these particular little rocky parts, which I'm doing here, or just little patches. And they just add a slightly more realistic texture to the, to the plastic base. If you've got little broken bits like this, just around the edge, looks pretty cool. Or broken parts like that to give it a bit of texture. And because the medium for this is an acrylic medium, so it's water soluble, so you can just take your, if you're like, oh, I've done too much there and you want to pat it out, you can just spread it around. I do recommend using a brush. I did start using for a little while one of my sculpting tools that I might use for other things. Or one of these plastic ones for G-Dub. But actually I find a brush is a bit easier to work with because you can add the water and whatnot. And you can go as crazy or as not crazy as you want with this stuff. Maybe you want a little bit in this kind of crevice. Maybe I've put a bit too much on there, so I'll take my clean brush and then wipe away what I don't want, feather out the edges a little bit. That's it really. It's got a little bit of texture. You've got to imagine that these are superheroes, so there's going to be plenty of rubble and whatnot. I mean, all the superhero films, they will end up destroying everything, don't they? And in the game, in fact, you get to throw a lot of stuff around. So I'm going to do the other two bases, then I'm going to prime them. Priming's fairly simple. I'm just going to do a black primer with a little bit of a grey as well to bring out the texture, and then I'll see you after that. See you in a bit. Okay, so this is what they look like after they've been primed. I gave them a black prime with a little bit of white ink through the airbrush just to kind of give them some bit of life. I am going to start with these. I'm going to do this one separately, probably afterwards, because it's got the metal and the brickwork. So I'm going to start with these. It's got a little bit of metal on, but I'm not too worried about that. So I'm just going to do the grey kind of paving slab type stuff first. I'm going to start with some Mechanicus standard grey. I've got a bunch of other colours on my palette, some grey kind of tones and such like, and we'll see how we go, because I don't really know what I'm doing yet. This isn't a planned recipe that I've done a bunch of times, so I may well grab other colours or knock the camera. Might do that. So we just got some Mechanicus standard grey, which is just like a nice mid-tone grey from G-Dub. Just going to slather this all over it really. You're still going to see some of the kind of, what's the word, zenithal kind of through it. It's going to darken down things a little bit. Not too worried about this being, you know, hyper, you know, one thick coat kind of thing. Don't want to leave any major brush strokes, obviously, but apart from that I'm not hugely fussed. Because there's definitely going to be some washes and there's going to be some pigments and a bit of dry brushing probably. Because I think even more so in this Marvel Crisis Protocol, you don't want the bases to distract from the cool superhero outfits, which are going to be like bright colours. Thinking about it, I probably could have gone over this with the airbrush as well, and it would have gone on smoother. But it is what it is. I won't be able to do it with an airbrush on the kind of pre-painted models. I like Hela, for example. So it made sense not to use it now. I will admit, you know, just while I'm chatting, the airbrush is something that I have only really used for priming. I've seen a lot of people get amazing stuff out of it, but I'm just too scared, you know. And I think that's the thing, just generally when it comes to painting. When you see these painting videos from a lot of people who are incredibly talented and they do a lot of amazing work, I would call them almost anomalies when it comes to the hobby. Like they're people who maybe paint every day, maybe they're commission painters, or they were commission painters, or they're like what you might call professional painters. But for most of us in the hobby, you know, how many models do you really paint? Not a lot in the grand scheme of things. You know, I'm definitely a gamer who likes painting rather than a, you know, miniature painter. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's why I don't use one of the reasons I don't use the airbrush much, especially when it comes to videos, because not everyone's got one. Not everyone wants to invest in oil paints and, you know, whatnot. Maybe they focus more on display models, and you're like, well, yeah, that's really cool, but Have I got the time to paint this thing? Anyway, I'm just rambling now. I haven't got a hairdryer. I need to get one really. A little crappy one. Stuff like this. So as you can see, there's the grey. Still a bit patchy because I've got the zenithal underneath it, which is fine. Just going to leave that to dry for a sec. I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so now that's dry. I'm going to go in with a wash, and the wash I've made is, oops, 1 part Null oil to 1 part Agrax, with some flow improver in there as well, just to kind of, I don't want it to be too strong. This might in fact be a little light, but we'll see. I'll slather this all over the thing and then I can mop up any excess. It really brings out those textures on the base, and I'll probably clean it up a little afterwards as well. Non-oiled pretty much just black, and the brown is a bit too brown, so I decided to mix them together. There's even where I think it's a little bit too strong. Actually, that's pretty good. But I don't want any kind of coffee staining. I've got a little bit too much on there. I can always wipe it away with a damp brush while it's still wet, and that's the advantage of the flow improver as well, rather than just water, because it kind of slows the drying time a little bit. That's it. Just need to wait for these to dry. See you in a little while. Okay, so I'll let that dry. Now I'm going to go in with some of the organic standard grey again. And we're just going to reinforce some of those areas. That's it really. You know what? I'm actually going to add a little bit of the tan, just to lighten it up a little bit. So now I'm going to get the Thar Brown from Scout 75. I'm going to use this to do a little bit of dry brushing just on the rocks and the texture. Not massively different, but you know, it's enough to make them stand out a little bit more. Now we're going to take some sewer water from Secret Weapon. We're just going to go in as like a little targeted wash. We're I'll do this on some of the textured areas, around the rubble, just in some of those larger cracks maybe, just to add a little bit of, you know, mix up some different coloration and stuff. Right, I've got three pigments, below pigments here. I've got burnt umber, I've got natural iron oxide, and I've got desert dust. These are just the ones that I happen to have. Be very careful because you could make a proper mess with these. And that's the last thing you want to do. So we're just gonna, let's start with the darkest one, which is the natural iron oxide. Take a tiny bit, and with this one we're going to go into crevices and onto various patches. Not loads and loads, just a tiny little bit. Oops. Just gives a little bit of a... Then we'll go in with the slightly lighter one, which in this case is burnt umber. And we'll go a bit more sparingly on this, probably on just on the rocks. Kind of in those rubbly areas. And then we'll go in with the light dust, and this is more so it's just to give it that dusty feel. And again, we'll start with the natural iron oxide, the dark one. And we'll use that to really, you know, push those shadows, any kind of darker areas that we want to do. You can always shove it in and then start brushing it off a little bit. And on the rock areas, we're going to go in with the burnt umber. And then almost just like a highlight, we're going to go in with this desert dust. lastly, I'll just paint the base rims back, and I'll show you that in just a moment. So we've got a couple of kind of normal grey bases done. You know, there's a little bit more extra colour in there, not massively. You know, they're not distracting in any way. I might add a little bit of, maybe a bit of rust in there. I don't know yet. Let's see. Now, we'll work on this metally one here. So, let's start off with the paint that I've put down somewhere and now can't find. Brickwork with whole red from Leon. This is one I really like. I've really got to like actually lately. It's a nice kind of red oxide colour. Okay, for the metallics I'm using burnt iron from Vallejo Metal Colour because we like it, and I'll get a brush. I'm just going to slot this pretty much, it's got great coverage, so I'm just going to slot this over the, I don't know what you call this stuff, I can't remember, there's a word. Anyway, this door thingy, so I want to do a metallic. Once that's dry, I'm going to go over it with the same wash that I did the other bases. I won't show that because well, you already saw me do it, didn't you? So that's dry now. I'm going to go in with some of the whole red just to re-pick out the bricks. It's not super bright, but it doesn't matter, we're just picking them out really. Because we don't want to lose that colour. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the depth tan, which will brighten and desaturate the whole red a bit. Because, you know, I want it to match the other bases, I don't want it to be too bright. I'm not worried about being super neat, because for a start it's just a base, and also we're going to go over with other things as well. Going with some Thar Brown dry brush again. Thar Brown from Scale 75, which is that. I'm just going to dry brush these rocks a little bit. because I've got this panel, metal panel stuff, panel beaten, whatever, I'm going to go in with a couple of rust colours. I'm using Orange Rust from Secret Weapon and Riser Rust from G-Dub. I'm going to go with the Orange Rust first because it's kind of darker. Watered down to like a wash consistency. I'm just going to go in some of the crevices. Just do some splotchy. Almost like a wash kind of thing. And then once that's dry, I'm actually gonna, once that's dry, I'm going to go in with some other bits and pieces. I'm going to reinforce the metal again because that's been dulled down quite significantly by the wash. It's just a super light dry brush of the original metal colour, which was burnt iron from Vallejo Metal Colour. But I'm going to wait for this to dry. That'll just be a couple of minutes. See you in a sec. Okay, so that's dry. Going in with some burnt iron from Vallejo. And we're just going to dry brush this in. We're going to focus kind of on the little bits where maybe a bit more work's been done, like the handles. Don't worry about it too much, we're just reinforcing a bit of that shine that we lost. Maybe we'll do the edge here. And that's it really, just to give it a sheen. Don't want it to be too strong. And then we're going to go in with the pigments like we did before. Okay, so there we have my Marvel Crisis Protocol bases finished. They look pretty cool. Yeah, pretty bit subtle maybe, but I'm pretty chuffed with them. The concrete ones seem to look or a paving slab or whatever you want to call it, seem to look a bit better than the other one. I think I put too much in the way of pigments on it, but yeah, pretty good. So that's how roughly how I'll be doing my basing for my Marvel Crisis Protocol. You'll probably see some of those up at some point. So, if you liked that, let us know what you thought in the comments down below. If there's anything you think I could do to improve or anything else. We've got various ways you can help the channel. Affiliate links and donation pages and Patreon and all that kind of fun stuff is in the doobly-doo down below. But if you do nothing else today with your time, make sure you do this one thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked it and want to subscribe. But if you don't like it and don't want to subscribe, you don't have to like and subscribe. But we would like it if you liked and subscribed. And until next time, stay hammered.